Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something, well, pretty fundamental if you're looking to level up, how we actually make change stick in our lives.
Yeah.
We've really immersed ourselves in James Clear's Atomic Habits to pull out the core ideas, those small, consistent steps that, lead to huge results.
Exactly. Forget the quick fixes, right? We're diving into the science behind real sustainable progress.
Hmm.
And the key, as the book just lays out so clearly, is these atomic habits.
Right.
Think of it like atoms, tiny building blocks for everything. Well, these habits, these routines, they seem small, but they're the elements that basically shape who we become, what we achieve.
Okay, let's unpack that. An atomic habit. Give us some real examples. How tiny are we talking? And how does that, snowball?
Well, think about flossing. Just one tooth every night.
1, 2, it seems almost pointless.
Right. Feels like nothing in the moment. But
Yeah.
do that consistently.
Mhm.
Massive impact on your long-term dental health.
Sure.
Saves you pain, money. Or like a salesperson making just one extra call each day. One call,
Yeah.
but over a year. That's potentially dozens of new clients, a real boost to their income. It's that compounding effect, but for our behaviors.
It's that slow burn, isn't it? Not the
Yeah.
big flashy motivation push, but just steady wins.
Exactly.
And for you,
Mhm.
listening, if you're looking for ways to learn to grow without getting totally bogged down, this stuff is gold.
Mm.
It's finding those tiny adjustments that just steer you somewhere totally different over time.
Precisely. We tend to fixate on these, huge goals. Lose 50 pounds, learn Spanish fluently, launch that big project.
Sure, the big ambitions.
And look, having that North Star, that's fine, it's important. But the book argues really strongly that the focus needs to be on the systems,
The systems.
the habits, the things you do every day that actually get you there.
Right. So the goal is the destination. Habits are the daily roadmap. Can you maybe illustrate that?
Okay, think about training for a marathon, the goal. Crossing the finish line, obviously.
Yep.
But what gets you there? It's not just picturing the medal, right? It's the actual habit. Going for that run day after day, even when you really don't feel like it,
Even when it's raining.
especially then. Or, say, writing a book. The goal is the finished book. But the habit of writing, maybe just 250 words every single day, that's way more critical than just dreaming about being published. It's the consistent doing. That builds momentum. That
Yeah.
gets the result. The book puts it simply. Action trumps wanting.
Doing wanting.
Ah,
I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It shifts things, doesn't it? From just wishful thinking to like actual steps.
totally.
And this leads into that 1% rule concept, which honestly sounds almost too simple
Yeah.
to be that powerful.
Yeah, this is where it gets really fascinating. So the book highlights this idea. Improve by just 1% each day. Seems tiny, right?
Minuscule.
But that tiny increment compounded daily means you're like 37 times better by the end of a year.
37 times. That sounds unbelievable.
I know, intuitively it feels wrong. But mathematically, that's just the power of exponential growth. Like compound interest, but for skills or habit.
Wow. Okay, so like a tiny gear just turning a fraction more
Yeah.
each time, but over thousands of turns.
Exactly. That tiny improvement leads to a huge difference in the overall output. We just don't notice it day to day.
So it's not these massive leaps. It's these tiny, almost invisible nudges forward every day.
Yes.
Can you give us another sort of tangible example? How does that 1% play out?
Okay, let's say you want to learn French vocabulary. Commit to learning just one new word a day.
One word. All
Okay,
right.
seems like nothing, right? That's your tiny 1% improvement for your French vocab. But by year end, you've added over 365 words. That's actually a pretty substantial difference.
Yeah, that adds up.
It's like water dripping on a stone, erosion.
Yeah.
Tiny drops. Consistently, they carve canyons eventually. We just tend to underestimate what small, consistent gains can do over the long haul.
It really is the long game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Patience, consistency. It's all key. And this brings us to something I found really thought-provoking, the link between our habits and our identity.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really interesting and I think quite deep. The book puts forward this idea that every action you take, it's like a vote for the type of person you want to become.
A vote. Okay, unpack that a bit. How is my habit of, say, checking Instagram first thing in the morning? How is that a vote?
Well, think about it. If you repeatedly choose that scrolling instead of maybe reading a page or doing 5 push-ups, you're casting a vote.
A vote for?
A vote for an identity that perhaps prioritizes passive consumption over, say, learning or physical well-being, right?
Okay.
Conversely, if you make a habit of reading just a few pages each morning, You're voting for being a learner, someone who values growth.
Mm-hmm.
Or choosing the stairs instead of the elevator consistently. That's a vote for being a physically active person. Your habits aren't just about the outcome, they're evidence, proof of who you're becoming.
So it's less about I finished the book and more about embodying the identity of I am a reader.
Yeah.
That feels, like a much deeper shift.
Exactly. The book suggests focusing on becoming that type of person rather than just achieving the result. So instead of I want to lose weight, it's I am the kind of person who moves their body every day.
Right.
Or instead of I want to be a writer, it's I am the kind of person who writes every day. That identity focus, it gives you a much stronger, more intrinsic reason to stick with the habits.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So we get the why, the identity piece, the compounding, now the how. How do these habits actually form? The book mentions the habit loop.
Right, the habit loop, it's like the basic framework in our brains for every habit.
Mhm.
4 parts: cue, craving, response, reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward. Okay.
The cue is the trigger, something in your environment that tells your brain, okay, start this behavior.
Like seeing cookies on the counter.
Exactly, that's the cue. Then comes the craving, the motivation, the desire. Ooh, I want that cookie.
Yep, know that one.
The response is the actual habit you perform eating the cookie. And the reward. That's the satisfaction, the yummy taste, the sugar hit.
The reward.
And that reward reinforces the whole loop. It tells your brain, hey, that was good. Next time you see cookies, cues you should want them, craving and eat them response to get this feeling again. Reward. Understanding this loop is crucial for changing habits.
Right. So to build good habits, we need to kind of hijack this loop, make it work for us.
Precisely. And that leads directly into the 4 laws of behavior change the book lays out.
Okay, the 4 laws. Let's start with law number 1, make it obvious.
Make it obvious. This is all about the cue, making the triggers for your good habits really visible, really prominent in your environment.
So setting the stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our brains are lazy, basically. If the cue is right there, we're more likely to act. Want to read more? Put the book on your pillow. You can't miss it.
Okay.
Want to drink more water? Keep a filled water bottle right there on your desk all day. Make the cue impossible to ignore. Out of sight, out of mind. Flip it. In sight, in mind.
Environmental design.
Yeah.
Nudging yourself without thinking too hard. Okay, makes sense. What's law number 2?
Second law. Make it attractive. We're way more likely to do things we find appealing, things linked to positive feelings.
Naturally.
And a really cool strategy here is called temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. Sounds intriguing.
It is. You basically link something you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay, give me an example. How would that work?
Sure. Let's say you love listening to true crime podcasts,
Guilty.
but you struggle to get yourself to the gym. You could make a rule. I only get to listen to my favorite podcast while I'm exercising.
So you bundle the temptation, the podcast, with the habit you need, the gym.
Oh.
Makes the gym more attractive.
Exactly. Or maybe you enjoy a nice cup of tea in the morning, but you want to study more. Rule. I only have my tea while I'm doing my flashcards or reading my textbook.
That's clever. Using what you already like to pull you towards the harder thing. Okay, law 3. Make it easy. This feels like a big one. People often flame out trying too much too soon.
Oh, absolutely. Make it easy is about reducing friction. The less effort a habit takes, the more likely you are to stick with it, especially at the start.
Right.
The book really hammers this home. Start ridiculously small, like really small.
How small?
Instead of, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes, start with, I'm going to meditate for 1 minute.
1 minute, okay.
Or instead of run 5K, commit to put on my running shoes and walk out the door. Instead of write 1,000 words, just write 1 sentence.
Wow, okay. That lowers the bar significantly.
It makes it almost impossible not to do it. The goal is to make the start so easy, so frictionless, that you just do it. Even on days you have zero motivation, it builds momentum, lowers that activation energy.
Consistency over intensity, especially early on.
Got it. And the 4th law.
4th law, make it satisfying. We repeat what gets rewarded. So you need to find a way to give yourself some immediate positive feedback for doing the good habit.
Immediate feedback.
Okay.
It could be super simple, like tracking your habit, putting an X on a calendar after you do your workout. Seeing that chain grow feels good. It's satisfying.
Yeah, that visual progress.
Well, maybe a small reward. Finish your study session. Allow yourself 5 minutes of guilt-free social media. Completed your difficult work task. Get up and stretch or have that nice coffee. The brain loves immediate rewards, so engineer them in.
Makes sense. Create that positive reinforcement loop. Okay, so those 4 laws, obvious, attractive, easy, Satisfying. That's a great toolkit for building good habits. What about the flip side? Kick in the bad ones.
Yep, there's a strategy for that too. And it's basically just inverting the 4 laws.
Reversing them.
Exactly. To break a bad habit, first, make it invisible. Get the cues out of sight. If you eat too many cookies, don't buy them. Hide them.
Remove the trigger.
Yeah. Second, make it unattractive. Remind yourself of the downsides. Why is this bad for you? Focus on the negative consequences. Scrolling Instagram makes me feel anxious and unproductive.
Highlight the pain. Got it.
Third, make it difficult. Add friction. Make it harder to do the bad habit. Want to watch less TV. Unplug it after each use. Put the remote in another room.
Increase the effort required.
Right.
And fourth, make it unsatisfying. Add some kind of immediate cost or consequence. Maybe you have an accountability partner and you have to pay them $5 every time you skip a workout.
Yeah.
Make the immediate result unpleasant.
So just systematically dismantle the loop that supports the bad habit. Invisible, unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying.
That's the framework, step by step.
Now, something I think a lot of people struggle with, myself included, is that feeling when you are putting in the work, you're being consistent, but nothing seems to be happening. That discouragement. The book calls it the plateau of latent potential.
Ah, yes, the plateau. This is so important. It's that frustrating gap between the effort you're putting in and the results you're seeing.
Yeah.
Or rather, not seeing.
The valley of disappointment, I think it calls it. Exactly. Think about going to the gym consistently for a month. You're doing the work, but maybe the scale hasn't moved, or you don't look that different yet.
Right. Or learning an instrument, practicing scales every day, but still sounding terrible.
Precisely. It feels like your effort is wasted.
Yeah.
It's incredibly easy to just give up at that point. This isn't working.
Yeah.
But the book uses this great analogy. Imagine an ice cube in a room that's, say, 25 degrees Fahrenheit, below freezing.
Okay.
You start heating the room, 26, 27, 28 degrees. You're putting in energy, right?
Yeah.
The temperature's rising, but the ice cube, still frozen, looks exactly the same.
Right. Nothing's happening visibly.
Until you hit 32 degrees, the melting point. Then, suddenly, with just one more degree of heat, the ice starts to melt. The change becomes visible. Habits are often like that. You're building up potential, making progress beneath the surface, even if you can't see it yet. That effort is accumulating. Then, you hit a threshold, and suddenly, breakthrough. The key is trusting the process, pushing through that plateau, knowing the work is compounding, even when it's hidden. Don't quit before the melt starts.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. Latent potential. Hidden progress. Don't give up too soon. Okay. Another big theme was environment versus just relying on willpower.
Yes. This is such a crucial shift. We tend to think habit change is all about motivation and self-control, gritting your teeth.
Right. Willpower.
But the book argues quite convincingly that our environment often shapes our behavior far more than our intentions do. Willpower, it comes and goes, it's finite. Relying on it constantly is exhausting and often fails.
So what's the alternative?
Design your environment for success. Make the good habits the path of least resistance. Make the bad habits harder.
Like the examples before, putting the book on the pillow.
Exactly. Want to eat healthier? Don't bring junk food into the house in the first place. Make healthy options the easy, visible choice. Stock the fridge with fruit and veg.
Makes sense.
Want to focus better when you study or work? Leave your phone in a different room or at least put it on silent and out of sight. Want to go for a walk every morning? Put your walking shoes right by the door the night before.
Reduce the friction. Make it easy.
Make the environment do the heavy lifting. Motivation is unreliable. Your environment is constant. Optimize it.
Okay, great point. And finally, there was this simple but effective technique for staying consistent. Habit tracking.
Ah, yes, habit tracking. Super powerful. It's basically about making your progress visible and, well, satisfying.
How does it work?
The simplest way is just get a calendar. Every day you do your habit, your 1 minute of meditation, your walk, writing that sentence, you put a big X on that day.
Oh.
Seeing that chain of X's grow is surprisingly motivating. You build up a streak, and psychologically, you really don't want to break it.
Don't break the chain. That's the mantra, right?
That's the core idea, and the key here isn't perfection. You might miss a day. That's okay. Life happens. The crucial rule is never miss twice in a row.
Ah, okay. Why is that so important?
Because one missed day is an anomaly. 2 missed days is the start of a new negative pattern. It often leads to just falling off completely. So even if you can only do a tiny version of your habit the next day, walk for 1 minute instead of 30, do something to keep the chain going or at least get back on track immediately.
So consistency over perfection, Keep the streak alive if possible, but definitely don't miss 2 days. That visual progress really helps.
It absolutely does. It's proof you're showing up.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaway from our deep dive into Atomic Habits seems to be, well, it's not about massive overnight transformations. It's about the power of small, tiny, consistent habits compounding over time.
That's it, exactly. Your life today is essentially the sum of your habits. Want to change your life, you need to change your habits, and it starts small.
And those 4 laws are the toolkit.
Mhm.
Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying.
Those are your levers for building basically any good habit you want.
So for you, listening, maybe just take a moment after this. Think about one tiny habit, something almost ridiculously small you want to start. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, and just focus on that one thing consistently, day by day. You really might be amazed at where those tiny steps lead.
Absolutely. It's about becoming that person, one atomic habit at a time.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.